I realized there are unique, outrageous acts of love that can be committed by me and me alone, and that is the unique purpose, obligation, joy, and responsibility. It's my ability to respond to reality. That's my outrageous act of love.
A planetary awakening in love through a unique self-symphony.
What a privilege it is to be part of this global community.
There's a voice within me that asks, who am I, right? Who am I in all of this?
Each and every one of us has a unique gift to give that we desperately need.
Welcome, everyone. How wonderful to be together today in One Mountain, Many Paths, where our mission is what Barbara Marx Hubbard and Dr. Mark Goffney call a planetary awakening in love through unique self-symphonies. We are activating a new humanity and awakening as a new species. Homo Amor, the fulfillment of Homo sapiens. As a church, a synagogue, a mosque, a temple, a zendo, no one is excluded, everyone is included, and we come together to attune to the evolutionary impulse awakening within us. I am Christina Tehel, the co-executive producer, along with Krista Josepha, Jamie Long, and Jacqueline Clark, and we are all so delighted to be together with each and every one of you today for week 290 of our live community broadcast. What a privilege it is to be part of a global community where we contribute to humanity's flourishing. Use the Zoom and Facebook chat functions to say hello, to let us know where you're from, to resonate the Dharma, and to speak your prayers. Remember that on Zoom, check that your chat settings say everyone so that we can all hear from you. Care to step into the work and practice of creating the great Homo Amor library? Reach out to me for the holy opportunities. My email is in the chat box now. Study the course First Steps as Homo Amor. We start next Saturday on May 7th, and it'll be myself, David Cicerci, and Jamie Long. And you can join the course by reaching out to Jamie Long, whose email is now in the chat box. Right after today's One Mountain, Many Paths, we invite you to move to a different Zoom. The Parallax Book Club is hosting a dialogue with Alexander Bard, Zach Stein, and Dr. Mark Goffney, which is hosted by Tom Amark, entitled Eros and Libido in a Time Between Worlds. Again, that is today at the top of the hour, May 1st at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. The link to register will be in the chat box, and you will need to register. But once you do, you will get an email that will have the Zoom link in it. Then there's another conversation tomorrow at the STOA. That one is entitled Cosmoerotic Humanism, First Principles and First Values. And that one is a little earlier, 2 hours earlier. and it's at Monday, May 2nd at 9 a.m. Pacific time or noon Eastern time. And that one is with Dr. Zach Stein and Dr. Mark Goffney. And the link for the event will also be in the chat box. Okay, now what to expect today. First, we start with the Dharma recap from myself. Then Dr. Goffney will set our intention. Then David will resonate the evolutionary love code that we're working with. And we are having a celebration for Barbara Marx Hubbard today. And so we'll have a few clips from her. And then we will move into the sermon and then meditation to enter prayer. To close, Krista will invite us deeper into community. And then again, we invite each of you to join us on a different Zoom for the dialogue between Dr. Goffney, Dr. Stein, and the other two men. We won't be bringing people on for the dance at the end of today. Mark writes evolutionary love codes. Mark and Barbara studied the codes together, often comparing them to Barbara's own 52 codes for conscious self-evolution. These codes crystallize the new story of humanity, quote, evolving the course of consciousness and culture, which is the source code of love, unquote. I welcome all who are new. We need you. Know that each week is a standalone and every week builds on the week before. One mountain, many paths is radically committed to telling the new universe story. Now for my recap from last week. The new world calls for a new world religion as a context for our global diversity. What would it mean to articulate a vision of a new world religion? A story of value that guides and challenges power, a countervailing force, and to actually articulate this story of value in a way that is binding. Religion, in its ideal form, is meant to be a system of value that guides power, an interior technology that guides the deployment of the artifacts of politics, public power, and external power. Every society has always had some version of a story of value that actually challenged power. That countervailing force was called spirit and was formalized in something called religion. And then modernity came along and religion collapsed for all of its corruption, its overreaches, its claims to know things that it didn't know. It's trying to control the sciences and stop the flow of knowledge and creativity. Religion became drunk with power. We need to actually establish, how do we establish value? How do we establish compassion and kindness as values? And what do those mean? Why does the human being have dignity? How do we know? Where does that dignity derive from? Is value real or is it not real? Is love real or not real? The new life conditions we're part of a whole that's inescapable, and we're living in the unbearable intimacy of that wholeness. We're collapsing value and colliding into each other. There's no place to hide, and there's no place to go. We live in a world space that's one space. Local spaces are almost irrelevant in multiple ways. Our supply chains, change of currency, politics, and vulnerabilities are completely interconnected. Everything is global. New life conditions require a new world story. Let's move from ethnocentric compassion to a larger universal vision of compassion. We call it eros. We call it love, our new vision of cosmoerotic humanism. We have free will. Our choices matter. Goodness matters. Beauty matters. We participate in that story of value of cosmos. We feel evolution moving through us. Cosmos has a real story of value, and we are part of that story. Cosmos has a direction, a purpose, and intrinsic meaning. We froze at this moment in modernity in which we had this loose, ill-defined sense of what the human being was. We said the human being is no longer a vassal or a serf or a slave. The human being has dignity as a separate self. That was a huge revolution. But we didn't work out the deeper structures of value. Our entire global system is governed by a pseudo story of value, rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics. If we don't replace that with a new story of value, a new world religion, we're gone. End game. We don't have a story equal to our power. When we don't have a story equal to our power literally destroys us at this moment in history where our power is exponential. The new world calls for a new world religion as a context for our global diversity. Now I invite us to more deeply enter into the holy and sacred space of one mountain, many paths, and I turn my word to you, Dr. Mark Goffney.
Thank you so much, Haley. Thank you for a beautiful Dharma recapitulation, and welcome everyone. First, an apology, right? We started about a minute late, so I'm sure there were people who thought, oh my God, where are they? And couldn't quite get in the doors. So if you missed us this week, we apologize. I see lots of people, and I see a few people missing. So it was our fault. We started a minute late. We apologize. All right, number one. All right, number two, we started a minute late because we were actually reviewing the excitement of what's going on today, and we were writing actually a new code, which we're crazy and deeply excited about. So welcome, everyone. Huge, huge welcome. That's number one. Number two. Where are we? Where are we? We're in one mountain, many paths. We're in one mountain, many paths. What is that place? It is a place of realization. It's a place of rapture. It's a place of revolution, right? That is to say, we're interested in the biggest possible picture we could have. The biggest possible picture of the widest possible vision of who we are, where we are, and what needs to be done. We locate ourselves in the stream of time. We're omniconsiderate for the sake of the whole. We feel the whole moving in us, both of the whole as it moves through time, so all of the past we can survey in an encompassing glance, the sweep of history, and understand how we got here. And then we can access a memory of possible futures. And when we access that memory of possible futures, friends, we realize that we are literally poised between utopia and dystopia. We realize that we're literally, in Hebrew we would say mamash, literally, we're at a time between worlds. We're at a time between stories. And that one very potent and powerful and real possibility is that there actually won't be a future as we know it for longer than a relatively short period of time, because the choice space that we're in requires such depth and such wisdom, and our exterior technologies are exponentially growing. They're not governed by a shared grammar or language of value. Those exterior technologies are being weaponized. They're all being developed even when they're wildly dangerous, because there's what we call a multipolar trap, or a tragedy of the commons, or a race to the bottom. That is to say, I'm afraid someone else is going to develop it, so I have to. Rogue actors, non-state actors, developing exponential weaponized technologies across a series of platforms are but one expression, a primary one, of about 10 different existential and catastrophic risks that actually can eliminate the future as we know it in a relatively short period of time. Now, when I say that, everyone just keeps listening. Oh, right. What are we going to talk about today? Meaning, it's very hard to take that in. It's very hard to take that in. Right? That's the move from the pre-tragic to the tragic. But we don't remain in the tragic. We go to the post-tragic. But we can't go to the post-tragic until we actually get the tragic. And often when I talk to people, and I'm talking about our inner circle of just delightful friends at the center, right, just in the heart of the revolution, this is kind of something that we do, but we don't fully get. It literally depends on us. This is ours to do. You got to take the tragic deep into your heart, and from there, step into the post-tragic. And the post-tragic comes from the realization that we're not just poised or looming above an abyss of dystopia, which lurks right behind the facade of the ordinary and the everyday, but we're also invited by the great ocean of utopia. There's actually a possibility, a new possibility. And evolution is actually, God is the possibility of possibility. And in the same energy that animated the Big Bang, the same energy that generated the first nanoseconds in which reality moved from the unmanifest to the manifest, that same energy lives in us, right? We are the possibility of possibility. And we actually can create a new future. We can actually access a memory of the future more beautiful, more good, more true than we ever imagined possible. And the way to do that, right? Yes, we can, right? Yes, we can. And if we can find that, just find that, just feel that together, right? Yes, we can. And if we just find each other just for a second in the chat box, can we just feel that together for a second? Yes, we can. Who can just feel that? Yes, we can, right? Yes, we can. And we get to be excited about it. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. And it's not because we're dreamers, it's because reality dreams. Because reality dreams, right, the possibility of possibility. Yes, we can, right? Who can feel that? Yes, we can, right? Colleen, Merritt, yes, we can, right? Benjamin, yes, we can. Claire, yes, we can, right? Jane, yes, we can. Jerry, yes, we can. Elena, of course we can, right? Who can feel that? Yes, we can. And what is right? Rick, yes, we can, right? Yes, we can, right? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. That's huge. But the yes, we can doesn't come from the pre-tragic. It means that I've actually taken the tragic in, and then from that place of seeing the tragic, right? Valva, yes, we can. From that place of seeing the tragic, we then move to the post-tragic. Yes, we can. And how? So the technology is always, consistently throughout history, what changes the vector of history is a new story of value, right? Based on first principles and first values, right? That's what we're about. That is actually another name for a world religion, for the possibility of a world religion. But again, watch how the world religion sits hard in our bodies. Oh, world religion, you're right. It should sit hard. Religion got hijacked. Religion got corrupted. Religion got degraded, as we talked about last week. And Taheli beautifully recapitulated in today's Dharma recapitulation. So we need to evolve religion. And religion is not monological. It doesn't just speak to us. We participate in creating it. And it's not one religion in the sense that everyone's doing the same thing. But it's one context. It's a shared grammar of value. It's a world religion that's a context for our diversity, which is for 100 religions. But there's got to be a shared context. It's a first principle and first value of reality. We're both the same and we're unique, right? We both share an enormous amount, right? We're the same. 100% of our body, 99% of our bodies are the same. But then there's this 1% which is radically unique. So we need to create the context for our diversity, right? The shared grammar of value. And it's only that shared grammar of value that allows us to have a conversation, allows us to have a global conversation. When there's no shared grammar of value, then there's no conversation between Russia and China and Bulgaria and the United States and Canada and Asia. There's no conversation. So we're all in the unbearable intimacy colliding into each other on a planet with exponential technologies with no possibility to actually do the most fundamental human act. And the most fundamental human act is conversation. Conversation is the essential mode of reality. Reality is made up of conversations. Does that make sense, everyone? Who's got that sentence? Reality is made up of conversations. The fundamental monad of reality is conversation, right? Or said differently, we live in a conversational cosmos. Who's got that? We live in a conversational cosmos. And the conversation begins in the first nanoseconds of the Big Bang, right? For my friend Zohar, right? So there's a conversation that takes place between quarks. 3 quarks that come together and create a quark set that remains and doesn't disappear in the first nanoseconds of the Big Bang is because there are protocols for conversations between quarks, and there's a shared value structure between quarks that allow for quarks to exist. And when subatomic particles come together to create a new whole, which is an atom, which is a new intimacy, it's a new shared identity, it's because those subatomic particles are talking to each other. Who gets that? Who gets that? They're literally, by any definition of conversation, they're actually exchanging information. They have a shared syntax of meaning. Does everyone get that? Now, of course, conversation evolves. It's not that our conversations are the same as the conversations between subatomic particles. They're not. But there's continuity and discontinuity. They just want to find each other. Who gets that? It's a conversational cosmos. Right? If you get that, just give me a yes. If you get that, it's huge. It's a conversational cosmos. So we need to evolve the conversation, right? In other words, just like subatomic particles needed a shared syntax and shared nouns and shared dangling modifiers and shared verbs, right? And shared pronouns, right? We need, a shared grammar of value, right, as the syntax for our conversation. And paradoxically, just like the world could not exist if atoms couldn't come together and create the possibility of a shared conversation, we've now again come to that moment. Can everyone see that vision? We've now again come to that moment where the micro and the macro meet and which we're colliding into each other, right? Like in the first moments of the Big Bang, in this unbearable intimacy, we are unpacking or allowing this unconsciously, it's just happening, this massive gap between our exterior technologies exponentially self-replicating, following the dictate of win-lose metrics, create, but create because we're funded, right? We create because we're funded, and we're funded by people who are driven by, and systems driven by win-lose metrics. We create, we exponentialize, and we weaponize. And then there's this huge gap between that and our interior technologies. And our interior technologies means the value structure, the syntaxes of our conversation. We can't have a conversation. Does everyone get that? Right? Stay close, friends. Stay close. We don't even know what peace means. We don't know what wholeness means. Right? We can't just use words. We have to know what they mean, why they're rooted in a structure of value. We've got to create a shared grammar of value. Okay? That's what we mean by a world religion. A world religion is the new emergence. It's the possibility of possibility. And when we started One Mountain, Many Paths, right, we realized that we need to start it, right, beloved Candace, we need to start it not with a war room, but with a peace room. But a peace room needs all of the energy of a war room, right? All of the energy of radical presence, full on focus, complete willingness, right, to lay my life down for this, to create this possibility, to create this future. Knowing that it depends on us, that we need to do it. And that was the energy which began One Mountain, Many Paths. And I came together with my beloved awesome homemate Barbara Marx Hubbard. And we're here this week as well, right, to celebrate Barbara and celebrate Barbara's participation. And we're going to be hearing a lot from her this year, right, in One Mountain. And Barbara passed 3 years ago. And I was by her bedside when she passed and spent the last several days with her at the hospital. And I say this not with anything but a broken heart, right, and a delight and a missing of Barbara, right? I talked to Barbara, the last word she said, I called her right before One Mountain, right, 3 years ago, right? And she was supposed to be with me on One Mountain like we always were that morning. And she had an incident 3 hours before, and the doctor said she couldn't talk. And I said, no, please put her on the phone. And she got on the phone, and literally with her last breath of consciousness, she said, Mark! And she was like wildly excited, right? She was excited about what we had talked about the night before, but One Mountain this morning, and about this revolution, about what we could do here. And she lapsed into unconsciousness. But the night before, we talked about this vision of One Mountain, and she said, promise me One Mountain is going to fulfill its mission. It's going to be the center of the revolution from which we can create a new vision. And that new vision we dreamed of is what we're calling a world religion. A world religion as a context for our diversity. Oh my God, right? As a context for our diversity. A world spirituality as a context for our diversity. Not imposed, not totalitarian, radical freedom, but a context for conversation, right? And we talked deeply about, last 2 weeks, the beginnings, we began to talk about world religion. And we talked about, we must have gone through 40 points last week. I'm not going to recapitulate them this week. And in coming weeks, we're going to go deep into this conversation. We're at the edge of here. And I know a lot of people around the world are watching this conversation, and we're aware of the gravitas of it. We've got to articulate clearly together, right, the tenets of what does it mean to create a new religion? What is it not? What are the safeguards? But what is it? And we're going to have, I hope, not next week, but the week after, a big Q&A session. We were going to do it today, but because of the parallax dialogue, we won't. We're going to have a big Q&A session after One Mountain, and 2 weeks from now, where we just talk about it. We can have a big, huge community conversation. But over the next few weeks, we're going to be unpacking together, right, the pieces of what might a world religion look like in this revolutionary moment, and why it's such an essential and radical necessity. And this week, we're just going to be with Barbara in the conversation. I want to share with you the fragrance, right, of these conversations, the early ones that Barbara and I had about all of this. So we're going to first resonate the code with David, which is going to be our code for today. Then we're going to watch a clip just to kind of sense and feel Barbara. It's a clip we made right after she passed. Then I'm just going to say a couple of words to introduce Barbara's first clip, and a couple of words to introduce her second clip. Okay, and Barbara's going to be with us in a deep way today. Be with us in the chat box, okay? I really want to invite everyone. I know there's some people, friends of mine, they don't like the chat box. We love the chat box. The chat box is a way, even as a person's talking, so I'm trying to share and to talk and to pour my heart in, but we can talk together, right? We can be communicating together. It's literally a new mode of communication. It was never possible before. In the old world, you just had a sage on the stage, and it was transmitting, which is beautiful. We need that. And we need to be talking to each other. We need to have big conversations. So we're doing both. So let's talk at the same time. You can listen, and when it comes up as Barbara's talking, share in the chat box, right? You can share an idea. You can share what generates, okay? We're getting, right? We're not getting older. We're getting newer every day, Barbara used to say, right, Scobby? Okay? Okay, so David, give us the code, brother. Give us the code. Oh my God, welcome, Barbara. Welcome, welcome. Give us the code.
Thank you, Mark. It's been my pleasure to take on what Barbara used to do, which was resonate the code. And if you're new, the code is a crystallization of Mark's teaching for the day to actually focus us and actually attune to our deepest heart's desire and our deepest yearning. So here we are yearning for a larger context for our diversity. And something Barbara used to say all the time is, place yourself at the hub of the spiral of evolution. So feel into the evolutionary impulse as I resonate this code together with you all. This is this week's evolutionary love code.
David, just before you start, can I just notice one thing? Just because we have to laugh a little bit, your beard's going a little gray.
It is, right?
Wow, we're getting older, David.
That's right. I'm catching up with you, man.
You're like 29. That's amazing. Oh my God. We don't get older, right? We get newer. David, blow our hearts open. Blow our hearts open, brother. Oh my God.
God is the possibility of possibility. God is the real. Reality is the possibility of possibility. Religion means religar, to reconnect with reality. The world religion is a new emergent reality, an expression of the possibility of possibility. New life conditions generate new emergence. New need generates new emergence. World religion as a context for our diversity is a new divine emergent, a new quality of the real, an urgent joy, necessity, and response to the new life conditions of global catastrophic and existential risk. And with that, I will turn my word back to you, beloved Dr. Mark.
You are awesome. David, thank you. And maybe what we could do is we could put in, I think we put in the wrong code. I saw, Krista, there was a code that was from last week. Let's see if we can get that code in that David just read. Okay, that's fantastic. That is awesome. Rock star. What a code, right? And we're going to get to last week's code as well. We just began that. So these are codes. We're collecting these world religion codes. And David, the codes were written by Barbara and myself, right? When Barbara passed, she's still writing the codes with me, right? Just like she did before. Right. And I can literally feel her. We write together, but we've been writing these evolutionary love codes. And, I'm going to make a promise within 1 year, maybe I hope much less. We'll just have a book out just of the codes, just so you can just read the codes. And we're thinking, David and I and Haley, that maybe we should just put out a book just of the codes without explanation, just so we just have them, right? Which is actually probably a great idea. So this is a fantastic code, right? And this is going to set up, right, Barbara's sermon for today. She's going to actually talk twice. Okay, God is the possibility of possibility. That's the real, right? The real is not just being. It's not just that I'm in being, everyone, right? It's not just that I'm not just awareness. I'm not just consciousness, although I am that. I am consciousness, I am being, but I'm evolving being. I'm moving, I'm dynamic, right? The greatest slave driver in the world is the belief that yesterday determines today. That's what evolution's the structure of reality itself. It's reality's dangerous idea, right? So reality is the possibility of possibility. Now, religion is religare, it's to reconnect with the real, right? So a world religion needs to be an evolutionary religion, right? And it has to emerge, right? And it evolves, and it's a new emergent reality, and an expression of the possibility of possibility. The possibility of a world religion up till now, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, meant one nation conquers everyone else and imposes their religion in a totalitarian way on everyone. That was the only possibility of a world religion 500 years ago, right? We couldn't imagine anything different. Today, we have this new possibility of a world religion that can include everyone, right? It can include the future Putins so that they won't become future Putins, right? It can include Biden, right? It can include, right, those people who would have become, right, terrible expressions of humanity. And the reason they would become terrible expressions of humanity is because they feel the world is nihilistic. They feel there's no structure of value, that there's nothing intrinsic, right? That it's all, right, a realpolitik play of power, because no one's presented them with actually a theory of value that says that value is real, right? Someone wrote me this week in response to one of the posts that we did. And it, hey, dude, you're talking about, it was his sweet guy, Sherman, was his or her name. Said, hey, dude. I always appreciate when I get a letter that says, hey, dude, right? But they, hey, dude to you, hey, dudette, right? And this person wrote, what are you talking about value? Value is completely made up, right? Value is not a molecule. It's not an atom. You can't measure it. You can't test in the laboratory, right? You're just making that up. And I love that challenge. And that's exactly wrong. And we're not just making it up. Right? And how do we know value? And how do we determine value? Where does value come from? And why is value not imposed but emerges from us and allows for huge diversity? But it's a context for our diversity without which reality stops being meaningful in its very essence. and we stop being motivated and our aliveness dissipates and disappears. That's what we're going to be talking about in the coming weeks. That's what we mean by world religion. We mean a shared conversation in the world. So this is a new possibility. This conversation wasn't possible before, right? Like Tom and Juby, right? So they're in a relationship, and they asked me to talk about their relationship in this week's One Mountain. That's actually not true. And I've actually never met Juby, so I can't talk about their relationship. But I would imagine over the last couple of months, they're having new conversations because they've been in a relationship for X amount of time, right? And there were conversations they couldn't have 2 months ago or 3 months ago. And now there's new conversations they can have because there's a new emergence. There's a new possibility, right? Love evolves. That's the wonder of love, the wonder of intimacy is you don't exhaust intimacy, right? Right? Does everyone get that? Right? Krishna and Radha, they don't like, okay, right? The great God of Rama and Sita, right? That's not like, okay, we're as intimate as we could possibly be. No, not even close, right? Intimacy is infinite. And then we can get deeper and deeper, and we evolve intimacy, we evolve love by deepening the conversations that take place between us, right? Like, oh my God, right? And so let's just, new life conditions generate new emergence. That means we can have new conversations. And we have new conversations where there's a new need, because new need, I'm reading the code, new need generates, right, new emergence. So world religion is a new conversation. We're in a new conversation. We got to be open to the conversation. We got to define the conversation together. World religion as a context for our diversity is a new divine emergence, a new quality of the real, an urgent joy, a necessity and a response to the new life conditions of global catastrophic and existential risk, which require, right, in order to respond to them, this new conversation. So Barbara and I have been so deep in this conversation about the possibility of generating a planetary awakening and love through unique self symphonies. And we're going to be talking about that the next few weeks. Let's hear from Barbara. All right, first, let's just see a little bit of a vision of Barbara, right? Just a little vision of Barbara, right? We can just see just who Barbara is. Then we're going to go, I'm going to say 2 words after that. Then we're going to go into Barbara talking to us about the possibility of possibility. Barbara Marx Hubbard, we're so honored to be with you. We miss you so, so dearly. Take us inside.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the world. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where his feet passed. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Barbara. And I'm going to ask Suzette and Taheli, Krista, who's ever putting up the clip we're about to see, we're going to change the clip. I actually want to see, for a good reason I'll explain in a second, the second clip, not the possibility of possibility clip, but the planetary Pentecost clip. Okay? So, and just everyone, just if I can share something a little bit vulnerable, right, in our techno age, my phone died 2 hours ago, meaning it so died that I can't even close it. So usually I communicate with people via text if we're making a change, but now I can only do it in the old style way, just by talking out loud. Okay? So just let me know you got that. Taheli, right, who's ever getting that, you got that? Fantastic. How beautiful is Barbara, friends? How beautiful. Just everyone who can just feel it. Let's just pour our appreciation. And holding Barbara. Right? Gorgeous and beautiful and right? And hard. Her life was hard. And she went through depressions and she went through pain and she went through agony, right? And lots of things worked and lots of things broke, right? It wasn't easy. So radiance comes, beauty comes, and what beauty really means is to be able to hold it all. Right? In Kabbalah, in Hebrew wisdom, beauty is tiferet. It's one of the 10 luminations. And beauty means the ability to hold it all. And the modern thinker who got a sense of that in his book, Adventures in the Spirit, is Alfred North Whitehead. Another book, Process and Reality. Also, he feels that same notion of beauty. Beauty means I can hold it all. Right, beloveds? I can hold it all. So one of the key ideas, and Barbara's coming on in about 20 seconds, one of the key ideas that Barbara and I talked about all the time is what we called together a planetary awakening in unique self-symphonies. Right, a kind of, if we would use the old language, a planetary Pentecost. And I'm playing this specific clip because you can feel Barbara in it, and you can feel her wrestling with how do we create something new. I called Barbara, 300 weeks ago, in the middle of a very hard moment in 2016, and I said, let's start a church, a synagogue, a mosque. And she said, no, right, we're past religion. And we spend like half the night talking. And we realized we actually need to reclaim church. We need to reclaim synagogue. We need to reclaim mosque, but in a new form. And we've been moving in that direction in fits and starts since then. And we called it originally, who remembers what we called it originally? The Church of Evolutionary Love. Does anyone remember that? The Church of Evolutionary Love. We renamed it One Mountain, Many Paths, right? The Church of Evolutionary Love. So let's listen to Barbara, right? Wrestling with the beginnings of a world religion. Here we go.
Mark, thank you, love. Thank you, life. Thank you, God.
Amen.
I'm going to speak of the evolutionary testament of co-creation and share with you something that I want to offer into the church. Several years ago, I asked the universe what kind of person could handle all the new power of humanity. Biotech, nanotech, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, space travel. Who is able to incarnate that as a human without destroying the world? And I took a walk and I saw a beautiful, a kind of, at the Mount Calvary Monastery, I saw a cross and I saw a group of hang gliders jumping off a higher mountain, floating in butterfly wings above the cross. And I had the phrase come to me, mass metamorphosis. And the phrase of St. Paul arrived in my head. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep. We shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of the eye, at the last trump, and the trumpet is sounding. So I was so thrilled, I realized that possibly the meaning of the resurrection of Jesus Christ was to reveal the possibility of metamorphosis of humanity. A new person, a new body, a new consciousness, a new light. And with that, I checked into the Mount Calvary Monastery for a silent retreat the next week. And I picked up a Bible. Now, I had not been a reader of the Bible. I had tried to be an Episcopalian and had failed. I come from a Jewish agnostic secular background. And as I started to read the New Testament with evolutionary eyes, I came to an epiphany that the life of Jesus, as he said, you will do the works that I do, and greater works than these will you do in the fullness of time, because I go to the Father. What does that mean? I go to the divine impulse in me, incarnated as me. I do this so that you know that you shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. Now, I had just been a friend of Jonas Salk, and he'd taken me down to these biological laboratories in California where they were saying, stamp out physical death. I had been a futurist with the work of, let's say, the people who are studying artificial intelligence, and they felt we could upload ourselves into silicon. I'm not saying any of this is true or not true, but we are already attempting to do the work. So as I started to read the New Testament, I became aware that it's coded evolution. And this is true of the great scriptures of the world. But this one is particularly true because Jesus was a future human. He's what we are becoming. And what I want to do today, since our theme is Unique Self Symphony, is read one or two passages from the actual scripture and then my interpretation of the scripture. And it's called The Day of Pentecost. This is really where it all got started, and it relates deeply to the evolutionary church. The day of Pentecost, what happened after Jesus' crucifixion, after the resurrection, after the story that Mary Magdalene was able to tell, he's here, he's here. And they couldn't believe her, and they couldn't believe it could have happened to a woman to see it first, but she did. And that seeing him after the crucifixion changed the entire world. It was not the teaching, it was not the Sermon on the Mount, it was the reappearance. Now, I'm relating this to ourselves in an amazing way. So here is a brief description. They all gathered together. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, these are the disciples. They were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. So, Mark, they reminded me of you. They were totally enlivened by spirit.
Amen, love. Amen.
And they were all filled with the Holy Ghost and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men of every nation under heaven. Now, when it was told that this was going on, the multitude came and were confounded. Now, here's such interesting, because every man heard them speaking in his own language. So these are all different languages in the upper room at the time of the Pentecost, and they heard it in their own language. And they are amazed, and they said, "Behold, are not these who speak Galileans? How then do we each hear them in our own tongue wherein we were born?" And they were all amazed and were in doubt, saying, "What meaneth this? These men are full of wine." So evidently they thought they might be drunk. But Peter, tells you the lifestyle, standing up with the 11, lifted up his voice and said, "Ye men of Judea and all who dwell in Jerusalem, be this known unto you, we are not drunk, seeing it is but the third day of the morning. But this is what was spoken of by the prophet Joel, whoever he was. And it shall come to pass in the last days, saith God, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. So here is the writing that came to me after reading that. Now, dearly beloved, your time has come. You are the second generation of disciples. You are to go forth and tell the new story to your generation. You are to tell the world we are rising. You now have the capacity to do the works that I did, speaking with the Christ voice. And greater works can you do. You who believe in your capacity to do as I did are the new disciples. You will work together for the planetary Pentecost. Now, guess what that is? It's the Unique Self Symphony. And here I described it. Now, this was written in 1980, before I'd ever known about the Unique Self Symphony. The planetary Pentecost is the alternative to Armageddon. It is a time on earth when all those who choose to evolve occupy the upper room of consciousness simultaneously. In this aligned field of love and expectation, you will all hear in your own language, in your own words, in your own inner voices, the mighty works of God that you are to do. You will be empowered with the powers of a natural Christ. Is this true already? I'm speaking to you all over the earth on internet, traveling with the speed of light, taking it personally.
It's true already. It is true already.
You will be able to heal yourselves, to restore the earth, and to emancipate the untapped genius of all those who so believe.
Amen. Amen.
The purpose of the evolutionary church.
Amen.
The media, your planetary nervous system will pulse with light as it reports on the stories of your transformation. Now, then I gave this book to Mark. This is before I really knew him. And I said, Mark, is it possible that God and Christ is speaking through us now, as that happened before? And he said, yes. And here's what he wrote in the afterword. You are a unique self who represents irreducibly precious story of essence that is being written throughout your life. That is to say, all of us. When you, unique self, awaken, you become an expression of God's will, and you are able to hear the voice of divine revelation. That means all of us. And when your awakened, unique self, sensitive to the voice of God's new revelation, joins with the genius of an ancient sacred text like the Bible, then the desperately needed miracle of revelation, so critical for our time, is made manifest. To whom does God speak? Asked Mark. Spirit speaks in three voices: I, we, and it. Barbara has heard the voice of God spoken in the second voice, interpreting and writing commentary on the sacred text. She's written an outrageous love letter back to God after reading God's personalized love letter to her in the form of the sacred biblical text. So what I want to conclude with here is that every one of us is hearing the voice from within. And when we speak it, it amplifies its meaning. And I'm going to offer to everybody that you should, if you so choose, you can get it on Amazon. It's called The Evolutionary Testament of Co-Creation. The promise will be kept. And we will be able to read it together and then ask what voice is coming through you directly, because it inspires every one of us to do the same. The day of Pentecost, the Unique Self Symphony is arising. Thank you. I turn it to you, Mark.
Amen.
right? And Barbara speaks so beautifully, and we resonate this together. We feel it together, and every word true. And I just want to hold you, Barbara, and speak to you directly. I miss you so very, very deeply. You know, you would call me 4 or 5 times a day and say we're resonating on the same frequency, where we share the code together. And there was nothing more glorious. And I turn to you, Barbara, and I say, the promise will be kept. And can we turn to each other and say, the promise will be kept? The emergence of a unique self-symphony, where we each are voices of prophecy, speaking from a shared syntax and a shared conversation that's a context for our diversity, for our irreducible, gorgeous uniqueness. And that shared conversation is going to allow us to heal the sick, right, and to end disease, right, and to establish freedom, and to create a new life and a better tomorrow. And yes, it's messianic. Messianic means the possibility of a new human and a new humanity. And it's counterposed and countervailed to Armageddon, which is existential risk and catastrophic risk. And the urgent life conditions of this moment demand this emergence. The promise will be kept. Wow. Friends, we're coming together this summer, and I'm going to invite anyone who can be with us. We're going to be August 6th through 12th in Holland. And Shahat, who together with Claire is organizing this great convergence. And this is where we get together for 7 days and we go deep into the source code with radical pleasure, ecstasy, joy that's unimaginable, a field of outrageous love. And like they did in Florence in the Renaissance, we generate in this time between worlds, the new world and the new Renaissance together. And then Crystal will close us. Right, in the next several weeks, next week's a surprise week. Then several weeks afterwards, we're going to be deep in this. We're going to come back to what Barbara just said. We're going to talk about what she said. We're going to hear Barbara constantly through the next 7-8 weeks. We're going to be in this deep world religion conversation. Oh my God, tears in my eyes, tears in my eyes. And I turn the word to Shahati. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Barbara. And if you'd like to be with us at Parallax at 2, for sure be. Mad, mad, mad love. Mad love. Like the innocent child. We're all innocent children, second innocence, and fiercely responsible adults at this moment in time. I turn the word Shahati. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Oh my God.
Hello, loves. August 6 to 12, in the cutest castle in Belgium, we have finally, after 2 years, the 10th Outrageous Love Festival, and we're in person. What I know is that the world needs us to be brave and step in ever deeper. And I'm inviting you, come to Europe. Take the trip. Come be with us. Imagine us 7 days with deep study, deep practice in a field of love, a field of evolving thought. What the world needs. We are the tailors of Eros. We get to tell the new story. Krista.
Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful Shahat and beautiful Dr. Mark Goffney. Yes, I can recommend this Outrageous Love Festival. It's the most transformative, mystical experience retreat festival that I have ever been in. So please check out the link in the chat box, and I really hope to see each other there. I'm going to keep it super short right now because we have 2 minutes left. I just want to invite everyone, as we invite each other, to support this revolution, to participate in this planetary awakening in unique self symphonies. And we really hold this revolution together. So become a member of One Mountain and subscribe and give your gifts to the revolution so we can all lift this up to the next level together. To become a member, you go to onemountainmanypaths.org, and I can't wait to see you inside. And right now we're going to switch to a very, very exciting dialogue between Dr. Mark Goffney and others. I'm going to share the website with you right here. The title of the dialogue is Eros and Libido in the Time Between Worlds. It's a conversation between Alexander Bart, Zachary Stein, Mark Gaffney, and it is hosted by Tom. Thank you all so very much. Christina, please take us inside with music. Thank you.